Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on operations planning, scheduling and control. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concepts of improving the P is to D ratio, the learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners, that is, you will be able to understand what do we mean by improving the PD ratio, how do we explain or what is improving the PD ratio calculated, and what are the various techniques of calculation of PD ratio. Then let's now first beginning, let's understand what do we mean by the PD ratio. Now this particular PD ratio is this terminology is being provided by Shingo. Shingo calculated the PD ratio by comparing the time that has been required to produce a certain amount of goods and services to the certain specified timeline. That is, when we see that a particular goods and services are needed to be manufactured, and when those goods have been manufactured or moving from one person to another person, one assembly line to another assembly line, then at this particular stage, the movement of goods and services and during which period the delivery time is being undertaken, such type of movement is called as the PD ratio, that is product to delivery ratio. A high PD ratio, for example, indicated a manufacturer who took more longer than the client wanted to produce a product. So that was the state of Shingo's business in the year 1985. In that particular year, a product was to be delivered to a certain client, and accordingly, the time that was been required for production or delivery of those goods and services was taken at a higher rate, and hence a high PD ratio is a negative concern wherein the goods and services that are expected to be delivered to a consumer are consuming more amount or more number of time, and hence PD ratio was increasing. So by accumulating the inventory, we aim to meet the customer's short D time, that is the delivery time, and hence the Mr. Dr. Shinko put it out that how do we prepare a certain amount of strategy in terms of manufacturing concern, and how the production or the goods and services activity can be monitored as and when the goods or the need arises. And hence, accumulating the inventory and proper usage of inventory to create a certain product which is of a more profitable nature, beneficial and comfortable nature is the consideration of improving the PD ratio. Now let's understand what is the concern of operational planning in the definition or in understanding the PD ratio. The abundance of MUDA in our production system. So in terms of the production system or operations management, MUDA means the waste that has been generated or the waste that is created. And hence the abundance availability of MUDA, that is waste, is of a certain consideration wherein the operational plan may fail at a certain stage, and hence the production system may differ. So with respect to the activity that has been undertaken in the organization, the MUDA that has been created may differ, or the quantity may either increase or the quantity may either decrease. And with the increase in the MUDA, that is the waste that has been created in the organization, the output of those particular products may affect in the long run or in the short run, and hence the PD ratio may increase at a higher rate. The plant was of another frantic expediting. Now, here in this case, the consideration of the plant plays an important role about how expected the plant is. That is, the frenetic expediting or the genetic expediting. Now, in terms of the plant consideration, the plant may be moving in a forward direction, either in a job shop or in a flow shop or the project shop. From the identification of those particular activities, we have to expedite, or we have to see that the activities are being conducted in a very effective way or in a simplified way, and hence for those particular consideration, the plant association or the circulation or layout is essentially important to be studied. The culture of improvement. What is the culture of improvement that has been implemented in the organization? How the employees in the organization are improving, developing and building a amount of culture for the improvement, and accordingly coordination of all those activities is needed to be understood and taken into account. And hence the operational plan with respect to the culture in the organization also needs to be assessed. The next perspective is largest customers and a compressor manufacturer. So here in this case, a manufacturer may be single or may be limited with amount of resources available with him, but the number of customers for a certain organization are always large. And hence, in these consideration, when the number of customers increases, the amount of P is to D ratio also increases simultaneously. Now let's understand what is the application of PD ratio. PD is a certain consideration wherein it is a basic consideration of understanding the operations activity that has been undertaken in the organization, and hence it is a ratio of operations activity. The next consideration, that application of PD ratio, is with respect to the demand time. The demand time of a certain consideration, that is when the product will be demanded, at what level the product or goods and services can be complied, and when it needs to be delivered. So a particular product may be assessed that it may be demanded after 1 month, after 1 day, after 15 days, and so on, or after certain time period. And hence the demand for a particular product is either specific, or it can be predicted, or it cannot be predicted. The application of PD ratios is also possible for the entire operations activity also. That is, right from the procurement of material, that is the raw material, to the completion of the finished goods cycle. For at all the stages or at all the levels, the PD ratio can be applied, and accordingly for the whole of the entire operational activities, PD ratio can be implemented. Next thing is the process of materials. That is, when the goods have been moving from one process to another process, one line to another line, one job to another job. So at that particular stage also, the PD ratio can be applied. At the time of delivery, so when there comes certain consideration of actual delivery of goods and services, then at that particular stage also the PD ratio can be applied. And hence at the place of delivery and during the time of production, that is the operational activities, the PD ratio can be implemented. The next consideration is that at the implementation or usage of technology. So whatever technology that we are using on that particular stage also, that is with respect to the availability of resources, the amount of technology that is needed to be required, and so on. So for those particular considerations also, technology is also is of utmost importance, and the PD ratio can be applied for the usage or the benefits of the technology. Now let's take an example of the PD ratio. So in this particular case, the percentage of interest time, that is whatever activity that the client has been undertaken, according to the research that has been undertaken by Dr. Shingo, it states that the interest time that has been available, or that has been consumed, or it has been utilized for the PD ratio is a proportion of activity. That is, in a series of activities, what time needs to be consumed, how the time needs to be utilized, and the overall cycle or the operation cycle of a certain activity. And for those consideration, the progression of material is essentially required, and accordingly the activity needs to be proportion. The calculation of Shingo that has been proposed by the with respect to the PD ratio, it compares the necessary time that has been compared with the client and the time for the delivery. So whatever time that has been expected for a product that needs to be delivered, and whatever time that has been expected to that has been required for the manufacturing activity, needs to be assessed in an effective stage, and accordingly a large PD ratio should always be avoided. That is, for example, indicative manufacturer who took long amount of time for the client which has been desired. So in this particular case, the atmosphere that is available in the organization, the process or flow of activities that is being undertaken, for all those consideration, an effective PD ratio is essentially important. And the prevailing culture in the organization also plays an important or a significant role in understanding about how the PD ratio can affect the activities in the short run as well as in the long run. And hence the PD ratio is a comparison of value with the respect to the entire time customer that has been consumed of either for a product or a service in the demand time, that is the delivery of the goods and services, and the process time, that is the moving of goods and services from the assembly line. So manufacture of the product or service, that is in the consideration, and accordingly the time that is been required for delivering a certain goods and services. So in this case, it can be calculated by implementing the formula and then arriving at a certain conclusion. And hence, the research of Shingo shows that for improving the PD ratio, all the cost in the organization needs to be controlled. There should be effective goods and services movement in the organization. The movement of activities in the transaction should be of a very fast and effective nature. The muda, that is the waste, should try to be minimized, and there should be a healthy environmental culture that has been prevailing in the organization. And with those particular consideration, the PD ratio can be maintained at an effective rate. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by improving the PEs to D ratio, how to implement or improve the PEs to D ratio in the organization, and what are the various components of improving the PEs to D ratio. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning at this particular stage. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Thank you.